You know, it pays to have children. Those of us who are parents, we know that it pays to have children because we get the love, care, and affection of having children. But in a more literal sense, it might start paying more financially to have children with an expansion, possibly, of the child tax credit. There's a number of different versions of this, and there is a debate going on. This is a very interesting debate. It's an intra-Utah debate. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but there are two august senators from the state of Utah, Senator Lee and Romney, who seem to have a disagreement about these things. And joining me to break down their respective plans, find out which would be the most beneficial for you and your children, is FCC's Director of Federal Affairs for Life and Human Dignity, Connor Semelsberger. That's a mouthful, Connor. Welcome to the program.
Great to be on with you, Joseph.
Well, we are glad to have you. Tell us what we need to know. Is this hostile for Utah? I mean, aren't they supposed to get along? They're really nice people in Utah, and it seems that they're quarreling over this.
Yeah, there is that disagreement on how exactly should Congress address the financial issues for the families are facing today. And, you know, there's two really good plans, but there's a strong difference between them. Mike Lee and Senator Marco Rubio from Florida have banded together essentially to take the existing child tax credit, the great system that's already in place, and just expand it to have more money going out to families to help subsidize all the child care costs that a family has to cover for children. And that's a great way to get money into the hands of families and help them grow. But the key to that is they want to continue to have incentives for families to marry, to create in the first place, but also to work. And that's the big difference between his plan, Lee's plan, and Romney's plan, which is more so almost a universal basic income, a monthly income for families that have children, around $250 a month per child for the whole child's life up till they're 18 years old. But there's no tie whatsoever in Romney's plan to make sure that the family finds stable work and it can have a steady income that's not reliant on the federal government continuing to kick in those checks every single month. So it's a lively debate happening here in D.C., and that's kind of the big sticking point between the two.
Now, has Senator Romney said why he believes it's better to just write checks to families for every kid they have every month as opposed to the child tax credit system that we've had before? Why does he think that change is necessary?
Yeah, so he's come at this in a way to hopefully simplify the federal subsidies that go out to families. So his goal overall is to get rid of some of the existing programs and consolidate all behind one simple check out to families. But what he hasn't addressed is why not have the need for families to continue to seek work, and how some of these federal policies can actually incentivize single people to marry, to begin their families, to have at least a parent working in the home so that it's not fully reliant on federal subsidies. But it's not something that's really addressed in Romney's plan or President Biden's plan that he's pushing through Congress as we speak.
And you make a good point there about marriage, and the social science is really clear that economically, emotionally, children are going to be in a better situation, not even if their parents are together, but if their parents are married. The outcomes for children when it comes to outcomes for families when it comes to poverty is that that when you live together, your situation is much more similar to a single-headed household than to a married household. Do any of these programs incentivize people to get married before they get these benefits?
Yeah, and so that's part of the child tax credit in and of itself, something Family Research Council was actually key in implementing all those years ago when this program first started. And in these tax policies, the key is to ensure that there aren't marriage penalties. For a long time, single tax filers were able to get a certain subsidy, but whenever you got married, instead of doubling it, because now you have two income earners, it was only 1.5 or even single type of benefit. And so that's what the child tax credit and a lot of these family-oriented policies do, is to ensure that when couples marry, it's actually an incentive instead of a decentive to be married, because you're exactly right. Families forming, and not just forming, but remaining together to rear children in society, bring them up in their church, community, and family, is something that no matter what stripe you come from, the federal and state governments should get behind in helping to form those families.
Now, it's the primary difference between the Lee Rubio and the Romney plan is direct payments or not, correct? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, essentially.
And so how does Biden's plan, how is that different than those other two?
Yeah, so his is trying to increase the child tax credit, like we already discussed, to a higher amount, up about $1,000. But it's also a very similar plan to Romney's in shelling out those plans month by month. Now, while that might seem good, again, there's no tie that there needs to be work. There's no tie that there needs to be a family actually striving to do good in society. That's the thing about Biden's plan, is that it's not family focused. It does help to bring children into the world, but it has no regard on what types of environment those children are being brought into, how they're going to be raised. And the other thing is his plan is to expand childcare. Again, something that is really hard for families financially to find childcare these days, especially during COVID. And instead of finding a family-centric, local community-based childcare incentive, rather it's a big government incentive that just hands out, again, direct cash money, regardless of economic situation, whether you're poor or rich, regardless of family formation, just a direct money to subsidize government-run childcare centers, as opposed to actually building up good childcare options for families, so they can decide for themselves whether it's best to have one or two parents working, whether it's best to have childcare in the home as opposed to taking it to more institutionalized childcare. So again, it's really taking those decisions out from the families and making it all come back to the government making those decisions for families.
Right. Now, Connor, the child tax credit has been around for a while, and those of us who are parents are thankful for it very practically. Is there evidence? What's the impact been of the child tax credit? Has it accomplished the goal that its proponents hoped it would accomplish when it was originally an idea?
It has, and it's even done even more than that. In those 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that President Trump was able to get through showed that expanding the existing child tax credit to help families better does work and puts families in a much better position.
Awesome. Well, Connor, thanks for taking the time, for joining us, and all that you do on the Hill.